In writing my new book on Joseph of Arimathea, the person who took Jesus's body from the cross and buried it in his own tomb, I've been very struck by some key leadership lessons in a time of crisis. We're living in unprecedented times of global crisis. We face a world that is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and anxious. And that's economically, socially, financially, and spiritually. And we need to try and learn, how do we face a crisis of this proportion? Now, of course, it was different in Jerusalem at the time of the crucifixion when Joseph of Arimathea was around. But that was a moment of crisis. The religious council that Joseph was a member of had met and was wanting to condemn Jesus to death. And they had a vote. And Luke tells us Joseph was a good and upright person, and he did not agree with the decision and the action. He was not part of the majority that wanted to see Jesus condemned to death, and he did not agree with those actions. And Joseph would have had to cast his vote in the meeting publicly. And that's very difficult. It is stressful in a time of crisis, as Jerusalem was facing at that time. In front of his colleagues, he would have to disagree. There are times in all our lives when we have to do the right thing, not just the convenient thing, the appropriate thing, not just the easiest action. You see, Joseph was a man of influence and affluence, but he put himself on the line. And people will question, and must have questioned, his allegiance. He must have faced the derision of his colleagues. And it's really difficult to be able to say no to a majority view when a Twitter storm breaks or mass hysteria happens in the social media. We have to make decisions that put us on the right side rather than on the majority side. Over the years, 40 years of being an investment banker, I've had to make some very difficult decisions. And sometimes these decisions are made in the midst of a crisis, like the great financial crisis, or even now. The pressure of knowing that many would be disappointed by those decisions, some perplexed by the course of action, the unmet expectations, and the direction that they thought we should be taking. Pressure was immense, but decision was followed by action. In a time of crisis, we both have to decide what we want to do and take the action that is necessary. Joseph did that. He saw that an innocent man was being convicted wrongly, and he took action. He knew it was right. So like Joseph, many of us will make these decisions against the prevailing social media commentaries, against the societies in which we live. But take courage from this. There is momentum in the minority. There is truth in being in the minority. We don't stand alone. We take a stand, make a decision, act according to what is right, not always what is expedient. And standing up for what is right requires sacrifice, as many of the Me Too people would have found, of standing up for justice and those that have been fighting against anti-trafficking, for example. But when we do so, we are following the example of Joseph, who was led by the example of Jesus, who boldly and bravely spoke out amidst the most extraordinary pressure that he would have faced, a pressure that we face today in times of crisis. It is worth remembering, as Joseph remembered, it is good to do the right thing for the right reason.